Welcome to The Human Element, presented by Whisk. I'm your host, Barb Biden, and in each episode, I sit down with CHROs and senior HR leaders to explore how AI, innovation, and human insight are reshaping the future of HR. We'll explore how technology is reshaping leadership, strategy, and the role of HR by sharing candid stories, practical ideas, and strategic perspectives to help you shape the future. The Human Element is brought to you by Whisk, the leader in agentic HR and creator of Harper, the world's first AI HR generalist. Learn how Harper can resolve up to 80% of routine HR tasks autonomously. Learn more about Whisk at whisk.com. Welcome to The Human Element. Today, I'm joined by Jill Wrobel. Jill is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Brunswick Corporation, the global leader in marine recreation with over 60 iconic brands like Mercury Marine, Boston Whaler, and Sea Ray, all of which are brands that I have personally enjoyed. Jill leads HR strategy across manufacturing, R&D, and customer-facing operations worldwide. And previously, Jill led global HR business strategy and M&A integration at Walgreens Boots Alliance. So thank you so much for being here, Jill.
Thank you for the invite, Barb, and I can't wait to hear about some of the amazing products that Brunswick makes that you've been on. Are you involved in marine? Are you a boater?
Well, so I have a sister who is, and we enjoy visiting her and boating, but I did grow up with a lake house and had a father who was a boater. So I'm in Dallas, so there's not as many great opportunities. There are some, but I grew up in Canada where we had lots of Great Lakes action.
Well,
up in your
you've
neck of
got the best kind of boating, which is somebody else who owns the boat, meaning your sister, and you have lots of ways to get out on the water. And it really is it's what I love about our business is it connects people, it gets people kind of outside, great for your mental health, great for community building. And we make some really cool stuff at Brunswick.
You do make some really cool, fun stuff. So today, Jill and I are going to focus on the real and practical challenges and the opportunities that she's experiencing as she works to embed AI into HR operations across Brunswick's business. And so let's hop right in, Jill, and just start chatting. Can you talk to me about an HR process where things were completely non-functional and something that really made you think, we need AI here?
Yeah, I'd love to. And maybe I'll frame it where we had a really interesting insight that came from our annual engagement survey. So we use the Microsoft tool Glint, and my global HR team, Brunswick spans 26 countries, and we have individuals who are in 4 divisions, including a corporate infrastructure, said to us, Jill, we have too much work. It's the number one issue that we are facing, and we need help. And it was a wonderful insight for us to say, I think we might have a solve for that, but let's really talk about what kind of work are you doing and where are you spending your time and how might we think about how to ease that? And let's create some energy behind it. So we are mid-cycle through that, Barb, right now, which is leveraging some of the pilots that we've done before. And I wouldn't deem them to be surprising, but I'll let you be the judge of that here in a moment. But I think what is really key is getting the mindset of your organizations and your HR functions to approach this work with a bit of curiosity, excitement, how they might be able to use AI to solve some of their pain points, and then building on that in an organized fashion. For example, yesterday I was with the compensation team, our head of global total rewards, as well as our comp lead for equity comp and salaried comp. And we were like, let's partner with this outside group and join a lunch and learn. And all 3 of us sit down and build a compensation agent. What would we do? How would we do it? What would it look like? What kind of time would it remove? How could you use it for better outcomes? We discovered some hiccups along the way. Not all of us had the same level of access, and we've got some things to think through. But I think it's a helpful way to think about how to bring those HR solutions to bear where they can be structured and organized, but they could also be in a bit of this discovery pilot phase too.
Yeah. Well, when you dug in on the work with those teams, what did they describe in the problems that they were seeing? And how much of the solution were they able to even start to craft on their own?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I would say more to come this year, including an idea that we're setting up for where we're calling it a Future of HR Work Hackathon, because we're ingesting a lot of what they know are their pain points and where they want us to go solve. What we know is if there's more fragmented work processes, that's just right for a redesign of a work process, but then we could put some agents on top of it. Onboarding is a really good example that I think we're probably going to end up tackling, but we'll see. We have so many teams that touch onboarding at Brunswick. It's not just an HR function. The business is involved, IT is involved, finance is involved, facilities is involved. How might we reimagine that process to both reduce work, but, showcase a bit of our innovative spirit? I would say we have used it in very traditional workplace efficiency ways, and our teams love it. So for talent acquisition, a lot of the ways in which we're capturing notes on the profile, job descriptions, candidate-related inquiries. We're using just a basic LLM for that. We use the Microsoft suite of tools, but it's been helpful to quicken that process. We also have a process right now where, just inquiries, just your basic HR questions. What does this policy say? Where am I? What do I need to do next? We did a 2-part process for that. For our US-based workforce, we had to update things like consolidating our policies and our processes with systems and the like, and then we put an agent on top. It worked okay, but it didn't work as well as we wanted. And so we're kind of grappling with that. The outcome on a quality standpoint wasn't quite where we wanted. And so we're taking the next iteration of that to try to alleviate some of the HR workflows. So I would say we're on 2 dimensions, at least in the HR function. We're on the let's reimagine the work and see how we could take a messy process and pull some teams together to see what the possibilities of AI look like. And then we're down on the micro level. How can you use it in your day-to-day work to pick up a couple of percentage points of efficiency or even kind of capture things in a more modern way?
I love how deeply sounds like you've included the teams in helping to shape this, right? And it sounds like the quick wins, right? Even though they're maybe on the more traditional or transactional items, that is the stuff that our teams feel relief from, and I think spurs more buy-in, right? More buy-in to the additional things the places we can go from there.
I agree. And I'll build on that. I think where the HR teams are also having a lot of fun, and I would call this more of your HR business partner roles, is partnering with their business leaders on how whatever function they're supporting could think about different ways to get that work done. So I'll give you an example. Brunswick has a lot of brands, as you mentioned, and all of those brands have different models, have different parts. There is so much complexity in our supply chain. We're a global business. We make a lot of things and we buy a lot of things. With a lot of the tariff-related scenarios that the teams have been grappling with, some of the teams that are on our supply chain and procurement related areas of functions, the HR leaders, the AI teams came together and said, why don't we use a blended AI solution? How could we use some of the, and I think a misconception is AI is just large language models. It's like so much more to us at Brunswick. It's not just guessing the next word. It's also guessing the next picture, codifying sort of how you can find things in a document. So they scanned in, tens of thousands of CAD drawings, which are the engineering blueprints to a lot of our supply chains and parts, and trained the model to look for different types of materials, let's say aluminum. So we could do some modeling behind what are the tariff impacts to those small parts in these large drawings, and then have the team spending time more on the strategy side. HR business partners are involved. What sort of skills do you need for that? Now that this is working, how do we elevate the functions? So it's been fun to watch the HR partners supporting their business leaders as they come up with new ways of doing work and what the next iteration of that might look like for the teams that they want to bring on. So even AI from a transactional standpoint is changing how the HR business partners are engaging with their business leaders to widen the aperture of how they think about new ways to do work with all the AI tools at our fingertips, I guess.
Yeah, that is such a great example, Jill, I read a quote in the Wall Street Journal that talked about the compute, right? The AI piece not being the only thing, which we all know, right? But practically speaking, here you've combined the subject matter expertise of the individuals, the fact that they have some judgment around the thing that they're dealing with, like your business leaders, your business partners, and that they're doing some pattern matching. Like they obviously knew there was some pattern to be had there between the tariff impacts, right, across models, and all of those three things together that they brought to the table added into brought into an AI solution is actually where the magic happened, right? It's like a very good example of how things are really at their best when we're bringing the best of human judgment to AI. So such a cool example.
Totally. And one of the solutions we're really excited about, we just commercialized it actually. And this is why it's so fun to work at we're a manufacturing company and we make things and we're super proud about that. And we make them all over the world. But we at our heart are really a technology product company. So we just commercialized maybe about 6 months ago what we call AutoCaptain, where it does what it basically says. You put it in your boat, you press a button and it auto docks. And it even can move you away, like autonomous driving, but this is autonomous boating. It can move you out of tight spaces and away from things where getting all of your human hands and all of the parts of the boat to work with usually a quite complex scenario. You've got waves, you've got wind, you've got docks and the like. The amount of AI to make that happen and the teams that we needed to hire and train is really phenomenal. We have this amazing design center at the University of Illinois where we have students who help do, I would say, a lot of the tagging. Like, this is a leaf in the water. This is a hand in the water. Water is green. It's blue. It's cloudy. Sometimes it's clear. A lot of our teams there have been talking about different ways to think about AI to commercialize solutions. And I would say that's where a lot of our R&D dollars go. What's been interesting is then widening the aperture to say there's efficiency tools that we can bring to the workplace that aren't necessarily product related tools, and we can innovate how we do work in a different way. We've got some work to do, Barb. We're not quite there yet, but we're trying to build some energy about how to make the future of work and your future of work really exciting at Brunswick, just like we make the solutions that we put on boats really exciting for our consumers.
Yeah. And I don't think anyone is all the way there yet, right? I mean, and things are evolving so quickly, but we've talked about some really cool examples. Let's go maybe a little bit in the other direction of the unexpected. So what is something maybe that you believed that about how the workforce would react to AI coming to their work and where you turned out to be wrong in how you expected the team to react?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, maybe I'll take the angle where I continue to evolve my point of view. I think I started out where we're using AI on an existing business process and we're trying to find ways to make that process better. And I believed that might generate some real, I'll just say it, savings. Could we take some of the work today and would there be a way that could really showcase that there was some efficiency gains in a way that made us more productive from a revenue per employee or even a operational cost or OpEx perspective. I think as I get closer to the work and how these AI solutions are really pointed, there's definitely gains to be had there and there's skill development there. And we have to do it. We have to do it. It's just part of how life works as professionals. But I think we've got to reimagine some of the ways in which we do some of the work, and we've got to rethink a business process from end to end. I don't know, in order to get, sort of real payoffs there, I don't know what that's going to quite look like yet, Barb. I am kind of in the mix of challenging myself all the time as to, I think I have a misconception that AI is just going to make my current job just move a little faster and be a little bit more fun and be a little bit more seamless. But I'm trying to widen my thinking of maybe my job is going to change in a different way, and what does that look like, and how do we really challenge ourselves in a transformation kind of context. In order to do that and to do that at scale, I think what's really special at Brunswick is we've got some work that we've been doing for a long time, but we've really continued on this concept of culture, agility, learning, curiosity, continuous improvement, where we can rely on the kind of concept like, well, we don't know what it looks like yet, but we know that we'll figure it out. And aren't we so intrigued and interesting to try? I think the misconception is for the workforce, like we've all got this figured out, or the misconception is it's like once you put this AI tool in this one work process, it's going to transform your business. I think we're learning it's more of a mindset and a journey. And that is, we just, as they say in life, it's not the destination. It's really the journey that, brings a lot of value, is really where we're trying to orient the workforce ourselves and be excited about the possibilities.
Totally. And it sounds like you've personally had to sort of keep yourself in this state of evolving your thinking, which, when you're pretty experienced in your career, right, at a certain point, there are things that you take for granted that and I've loved, and it sounds like you have too, where sort of some of the immediate things that you might go to with AI have challenged the assumptions that you had about that particular thing, right? Which is interesting for reasons sort of beyond AI too, right? Is like, how long have we all held certain assumptions about things that even just this new way of thinking or new way of working is causing us to take another look at?
That's right. And I even started, and I know that, some of your listeners have heard other guests said the same thing, and you abide by this philosophy, but you got to start with just what are people talking about? Like in my whole career, including my days in M&A, like words matter, definitions matter, and let's really challenge ourselves to make sure that we're using them correctly. And I was like, when we say AI, like what are we even talking about? So I took a course last year through the University of Berkeley Haas School of Business, just called Business Applications, AI and Business Applications, something along that regard. And I picked it based on a recommendation from a network friend because it got into the math. There was there was a portion of the course that was like, let's talk neural networks. Let's really talk about visual and sound and LLMs and how they developed and how they train. That was like really transformational for me to actually spend some time challenging my assumptions that I couldn't just talk about it in generalities. I needed to get my hands dirty a little bit when I was using the right terms or different terms or terms are evolving. Agentic AI has been all of the rage. That's somewhat of a newish type term. I would say that that's been a really important part of not getting comfortable that just because I'm, the head of HR, the CHRO, or an executive vice president, that I don't need to know those things, or I don't need to be curious that, the teams will do it, or I'll find somebody to teach me. I think we're just in this world where being a leader and being a effective leader really requires you to make sure that you're approaching any situation, but certainly the technology transformation with a spirit of agility, resilience. Let's go figure it out. I'm going to try to learn this myself and lead by example.
For sure. Genuine curiosity, even down to the ground level, and like getting into the course with that involved sort of detailed math, right, is important even at our level in order to understand this new world. So shifting gears a little bit, because I would imagine that Brunswick's business has some seasonality to it, and that you've got a great deal of need to be doing sort of workforce planning. And have you ever had a situation where you've had the wrong people in the wrong places, or too many here, not enough there? And have you been thinking about applying AI to any of those sorts of problems?
Yeah, I'll probably answer it in two ways. So we certainly have a seasonality element in certain markets where people boat when the weather allows them to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure that our consumers get what they need in those markets from us is really important for some seasonality effects. I'll just describe that most broadly as our parts and accessories business, and how to think about making sure our service teams who have these influx of, I'm missing this, a dealer will say, Barb's sister brought her boat in. We're missing a bunch of, parts. Where do we find these? How do we get them? Our service people will have these influxes of time where they're really quite inundated with requests, and time is money, because you want to get those, you want to be able to supply the part, you want to be able to find the part, and you want to get it to the dealer so the consumer can get back out on the water. We have applied AI to some of those service workflows. ingesting service manuals, ingesting kind of service parts finding, and supporting our service related leaders and some of our technician related leaders with a more seamless way to service those, those peak demands so that people can get out on the water. And we're learning a lot. They're accurate and we're proud of the progress, but we're forcing ourselves to reimagine some of those workflows, which has been really interesting to kind of watch in real time. The second thing I would say is what's on our mind, but we haven't applied it yet. One of the businesses that Brunswick owns is called Freedom Boat Club. It's a subscription model. I'm a proud member where you pay a one-time fee and then monthly dues, and you use an app-based experience to have unlimited usage of boats in your home club. In those seasonal markets, hiring the people that we need that are the dock hands that greet our customers, who get out on the water, help them, come back in and have a great day out with their family and friends. That is a lot of work for us. Releasing people, hiring them. Some of the boating seasons are only a couple of weeks, couple of months long. We've really evolved our processes over time as that club has grown from, 50 clubs 5 years ago upwards to 500, almost 500 clubs globally. So there's been a lot of work with how we might build the talent pipeline and the connections and the onboarding. We are looking at, speaking of that workload hackathon, we are looking at what are some parts of the process with those seasonal markets that we might be able to support the HR teams who do feel very much under stress during those time periods of year of how they're going to navigate the business. And maybe you'll have to have me back and I'll tell you where we land with that, but we haven't designed it, yet, but I know something like that is to come.
Well, with the parts, it sounds like the AI solution is actually, it's not about having the right people in the right places, it's the right parts in the right places, and how that would alleviate stress on your workforce when they can find what they need to satisfy the needs of the customer who, wants to get back out on the water, right? So yeah, my sister's boat needs to be fixed by the time I get there for the weekend.
That's right.
For sure. So
that's right.
I hear you. Very important. So I want to actually go back to some of your M&A roots, if you don't mind. I bet you would not mind going through like a diligence and integration process with an AI at hand. I mean, that I think is going to be a big area. I'm curious though, is there anything that even like a mistake that you've made historically when doing either acquisition diligence or integration, or something that you would do differently if you had AI in hand through that process today?
Ooh, well, there's certainly been a lot of lessons learned as it relates to M&A that I apply all the time, mainly just in terms of structuring the teams and structuring some of the workflows. My example was going to be in an advice that I use all the time is like, words matter. Make sure you understand what the defined terms are of what you're solving for. I once had a scenario where somebody was describing this bit of a process in the diligence of like, oh, we're just going to run a pilot in a couple of these stores. And I had assumed that meant that we weren't taking legal control of them. And then I found out that we were. And there was a whole number of things from an HR standpoint that when you take legal control for a quote unquote pilot with a lowercase p was a big learning. And so now I'm very intentional when I say like, oh, you want to have a connectivity strategy. Like, what does connectivity mean to you? Because it might be something totally different. To me, it would be really fascinating. I mean, I would say that the way that M&A tools could quicken the process is certainly in the document discovery. There's a lot of ways in which you've got to review and talk through hordes of materials and also kind of have what I would call it stakeholder interviews of what's happening. I would imagine if I was still in that role, that would be a huge efficiency time saver. I'd have to challenge myself a little bit, or even sort of scraping the internet with different sort of sentiments, using prompt engineering with some, publicly available, tools and asking some really good questions about what the company's like, and some considerations of additional questions to ask would certainly supplement the process. I'd have to challenge myself though, if there would be, some broader based value agents that I could think about deploying in the M&A context. But all of it's going to depend on, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And is everybody really clear of what the initiatives are? It's bodes well in an M&A context and very valuable just in broader business context for sure.
I mean, I was thinking about it buying back time for usually lean M&A teams, right? I mean, if you never had to do document comparison of, benefits contracts from target company to acquiring company or pension documentation or those sorts of things. And the amount of, first of all, I mean, humans' ability to literally compare documents in that way is imperfect at best and time consuming, right? So it's like, if that kind of work lifts off your plate a little bit, like how much more could you spend on some of the talent review and culture review and actually digging in on sort of those cultural answers, which is, I think, kind of totally where you were going, right?
Yes.
We've been using it for document comparison as a starting point. And I just think it just makes the world different for the folks that are doing that work, where they might have spent like 60% of their time doing some tedious work that's beyond their capabilities are well beyond that to be able to dive in more deeply on other things. So I think our friends in M&A are going to have some fun solutions in the near future.
That's right. I agree with that. Even the integration plans, give me an integration plan that ingests all of these documents, make sure I don't miss anything. I'll put the checklist, give me a executive level support. And then, oh, by the way, I do have to, as the human, make sure that I'm trained where I know what I'm looking for and can ensure that you've got the business judgment. So it doesn't replace all of it, but it certainly would quicken the process so you can spend more time on the things that really matter with getting the messaging right and making sure you've got time to help, people through the change.
I love it. So there's been lots of talk about AI really heightening the need. I mean, I would argue this need has always been there, but to really tighten the partnership between IT, legal, and the CHRO. When you think about governance of AI within HR, within an enterprise, how do you think about that relationship, and how are you working through some of those partnership items?
I'm just really lucky. Brunswick is a phenomenal place to work, and the leadership teams are very collaborative. So I don't find myself in a situation where I'm sort of fighting for a, proverbial kind of seat at the table. We have both. We have very structured governance processes that HR, legal, privacy, cyber, IT, and the rest of the business have come up with. Who gets to use a tool? Where do we invest in a tool? How do we really convey that sense of innovation and democratization of continuous improvement tools? I would say more of where our conversations go, and I wouldn't say it's a disagreement, is just like we can only spend so many dollars and there's only so much time and so many priorities. So I would find where I'm kind of working with those cross-functional teams a lot is, where are we investing? Because we can't invest everywhere. And is that the highest and best use of how we want to deploy our resources on our teams, as well as our capital if we have to, buy a tool or buy a software, develop something. And in that vein, HR at Brunswick actually has accountability for what we call our Enterprise Transformation Office, which is a holistic view of where does work get done, but then also where might we apply AI to some of the work? How can we organize where the teams are applying these AI solutions so that we can pick up efficiency gains if they're there? We can reinvest, we can storytell, we can kind of move the organization in a way where it feels very connected. So I'm highly complimentary of my legal partners, our privacy and cyber office, my IT partner, and particularly we have a head of AI who I bring with me to HR industry conferences sometime. And I talk about, and I think you think you're developing all of these commercialization tools, like think of the innovation we could apply on the workforce and how we could continue to make Brunswick a really wonderful place to be. You need to kind of come and see the conversations that I'm having to help us, really take a step forward. And he came with me to a 2-day conference in New York a couple of weeks ago. And it was a really great way of working together where, the roles are clear and the responsibilities are clear, but really there's not a lot of silos. We're all really in this together.
Excellent. Well, as always happens around this time of the episode, we start to get short on time. This has been a great conversation. I want to hit a quick lightning round, just a sort of quick hit answer on a couple of things. What is one misconception that you think HR leaders have about AI adoption?
I think they think once we tell people what the tool is, that they'll use it and continue to use it. It's like anything, adoption takes adoption takes time and takes focus. And even those that develop the AI tools, at third-party partners of ours, they're feeling the same challenges of change management is hard. It takes a lot of focus. It does take time. And you got to tell people and support them through the journey, probably longer than you think you will, as a next step.
This is going to be the largest scale change management case study of our careers, I think, here. So
That's right.
That'll be a big role for HR in that, obviously. So this is a fun one. If you could take a magic wand and use it to solve one HR challenge using AI overnight, what would it be?
I would say, gosh, there's kind of a few that I want to solve. I think it would be how to get, it's probably an extension of HR shared services, but like how to get our employees the answers that they need to the questions that matter to them in a way that doesn't place so much burden on the HR leaders. It's more of a broader employee experience standpoint. Less time answering employee inquiries, but doing it in a way where the employees feel like they can get the answers that they need. They're aware of what they want. They feel empowered to alleviate some of the pressure that I know, particularly in the plants, our HR plant leaders feel all the time, where everybody comes to them for everything.
Well, if that's your pick, we have the same magic wand, because I would 100% pick the same thing.
Good.
So I think it's huge. Like, let's figure this one out for sure, right? Deliver really great answers to our team members and I think the boost that will give to our teams by not always feeling behind, right? And getting
That's
the
right.
answers out there it will have a huge impact. So, Jill, I always try to give guests the final word, but I took a couple of quick takeaways from our conversation. First was I had sort of the personalization impact of AI, and I took that from the example of the business partners and the business leaders working with the CAD drawings, and extrapolate a little bit to like how we might leverage AI to take sort of enterprise-based solutions and tailor them to specific use cases that might be country-specific or business unit specific.
Yes,
so that really
that's
kind
a
of got me
great
thinking,
one.
and I thought was unique compared to things we've talked about on the show so far. I liked your evolution of your own point of view, but I also thought your mention of cultural agility within Brunswick, maintaining curiosity, which is something that we've heard a lot, but especially the stance and the phrase that you might restate to team members, we don't know, but we will figure it out, is just such an approachable standpoint, I think, to take with our teams so that they understand that we don't have it all figured out either, but we trust we can get there together. And then when we talked right at the end about partnership and the great partnership you have with your other executive peers, the piece around prioritization there and the need to align with those other leaders who are driving AI projects so that we choose our places and have the right impact, but also how we can better understand each other's worlds, right? The idea of bringing your AI individual with you to a conference so that they can immerse and understand the real nature of what it is that you are doing to deliver better solutions, like that partnership for the folks that are driving these changes, so critical. So thank you for those insights. I'm sure listeners will get even more as they watch the episode, but leaving you with the last word, what is one piece of advice you would give to HR leaders who may just be starting at the very beginning of their AI journey?
Ask your team. What's one thing? I mean, you asked me the magic wand question. I think if you're just starting, don't assume that you have the answers. Pull your team together. Pick something that you think could make meaningful progress and use that to build some enthusiasm as well as some proof points that you want to move forward. The best solutions are always from those that are closest to the work. And our role as leaders is to really unlock that and help people move forward.
Totally agree. This was awesome, Jill. Thank you so much for making time. And I'm so glad to have had you on.
Thanks for having me, Barb. And I hope you have a wonderful summer with your sister out on the waters. Make sure to send me some.
I will, for sure. Thank you for joining us on The Human Element, presented by Whisk. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow The Human Element wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Barb Biden. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.